Hey guys, welcome back. If you're watching this video, chances are you're looking for ways to improve the quality and realism of your Blender scenes. Now, I can confidently tell you lighting is one of the most important things when it comes to increasing the quality and realism of your scene. In this video, I'm going to walk you through leveling up the lighting in a basic scene and teach you some tips and tricks that helped me take my work from this to this. So, let's dive into it. So this is going to be where we start. To add a light to our scene, we're going to come up here and click Add, Light, and I'm going to start by adding an area light. As you can see, we can move around our light just like we would move any object around in the 3D space. We can also scale and rotate our light. Now, the first thing I want to share is actually more of a basic concept, and that is the concept of three-point lighting. Now, this basically means that you're going to typically have a light in front of your subject, on top of your subject, and behind your subject. There isn't a rule with this that says you have to have your lights exactly here, here, and here, but it's more of the idea that you want to highlight it from the front, top, and back. And for example, I could move this light down a little bit if I didn't have a backdrop here. And I could move this light a little bit behind. Maybe this light comes at an angle instead of being directly in front. But the point is I want to try to always have these three lights in a scene, even if some of them are more intense than others. So now let's talk about intensity. If we click on one of our lights, we're going to see that we have the option to increase the strength or lower the strength over here in this pop-up menu. But before you start randomly messing with this number, you have to get really clear about what you're trying to achieve in this scene. If I'm trying to achieve a very dramatic render with top-heavy lighting, sort of like a museum, this light is probably going to have the highest power. And then maybe I would reduce the power of my back and front lighting. If I'm trying to create a more traditional e-commerce render, the front lighting would probably have the largest power. If I'm trying to create a dramatic shot with interesting backlighting, like maybe something editorial, maybe I would have the power be a little bit higher on my backlight and dim my front lights a little bit. And then you want to think about color. If you're trying to achieve a little bit of a warmer or cooler look in your image, that's something that actually will come from the lighting. So by default, the lights are all going to be white. Now, if you want a little bit of a cool neutral image, that's completely fine. But if you're looking to warm it up a little bit, you can definitely change the tone, the color of the lighting to be a little bit more yellow. If you're looking to create something more dramatic with colored lighting, this is where you'd probably change the color of your light to a really bold color and increase the intensity. If we do that and then click Render Preview, it's going to change the color of our entire scene. The entire scene now has this reddish glow. If I was trying to create a more targeted and intense look, I would probably move the lighting a lot closer to the avatar. I would dim the rest of the lights in the scene. And I'd also probably play around with different lighting, different lights. So I would try doing a spotlight, which can sometimes be a little bit more targeted. I would also maybe try a point light, see if I like a little bit more of an intense glow all over, or I could just stick to my area light. But it's really nice that changing the lighting type is as simple as clicking between these four options over here. So when you're creating your scene, definitely experiment with different lights in different positions to try to achieve the look you want. The one lighting type that's a little bit different than the rest of them is the sun. So if we add a sunlight to our scene, we're going to notice that it has kind of a similar look as the point light, but the main difference is that when I add it to a scene and I click render, the sun is going to cast a very defined shadow, unlike area lights and point lights. Now, spotlights do have a pretty defined shadow, but they also have a very targeted light source. It's not all over like the sunlight. If you're looking to create a render like this with a very, very defined shadow, a sun definitely can be helpful to add in your scene. What I would also do is make sure cast shadow is unchecked for the other lights in my scene, so the sun shadow is really the only one that stands out. Let's jump back to spotlights and talk about them a little bit more before we go forward on to talking about HDRIs. As we were saying, spotlights are really great for creating targeted light sources like this. So let's go ahead and change the sun to a spotlight. Now, as we can see, the spotlight has a bit of a cone look to it. I can change the size of this cone in two ways. One, I can make it a little bit shorter using my transform tool. I can also make the spot size smaller, which is going to create more of a targeted light source. So as we can see, spotlights are definitely the best choice for creating that really strong one-dimensional targeted light source and having that great shadow. The last thing I want to share with you before we jump to HDRIs is the idea of applying lighting to existing objects. To demonstrate this, I'm going to add a basic object to a scene. Let's do a sphere. And then I'm going to go over to my shading tab of Blender and apply a basic material. So by default, I see my basic options like roughness, metallic, and color. But if I open up the bottom tab here that says emission, it's going to allow me to choose a color and an intensity of my light material. So basically, once I go to render this, it's going to show as a light. Now this definitely isn't supposed to replace creating a light setup, but it can be helpful if you have objects in your scene that should have kind of that light looking material, and they also do emit light, meaning that this sphere actually is going to project light onto my scene. And this could be really helpful if I was trying to create a render like this. So now that we've covered all of that information about lighting setups in Blender, let's talk about one of the most important things you can do with lighting, and that is learning how to use HDRIs. HDRIs are basically lighting setups created from images taken in the real world. There are a lot of websites out there that allow you to download these HDRIs, some of them for free, some of them royalty-free for purchase. One site I use a lot is Adobe Stock. They have all of these options. Another site I use often is called Polyhaven. Polyhaven is great because everything is free. So for demonstration purposes, I'm going to quickly download an HDRI I like by clicking download. And if I want to change the quality of this image texture, I can download something at a lower resolution 1K, or a higher resolution at 16K, but I think 4K is generally pretty good, so I'm going to click download. Alright, this is almost ready to bring into our scene. There is one more thing we need to do, which is download the free Blender plugin called Easy HDRI. It will take under 2 minutes and it is a lifesaver. This is the tutorial I followed a while back to download the Easy HDRI plugin. Simply search Easy HDRI and then click on this first link, codeofart.com. Then you're going to come over here and name the price you'd like to pay. Now this is a free download. However, if you'd like to contribute to this page, feel free to type a number here and click purchase. Then once you do that, it's going to bring you to this page over here, and you're going to select the first zip file here and click download. Next step is coming up to edit in Blender and going preferences, and then we're going to click install and find the zip file that we just downloaded. And just remember, you don't need to unzip the file, simply just install the folder you just downloaded. When you do that, and then you click here and search Easy HDRI, you should see a grayed out tab right here. You're going to simply check this box, and now you're going to see that the HDRI add-on appears in your Blender scene. And this is how the Easy HDRI plugin should actually look. So to get from where we just were to here, all we need to do is click on this folder button and go into the folder with the HDRI that we just downloaded, click accept, so loading in the whole folder, and then we're going to click fix world nodes. Once you click fix world nodes, it should load up this plugin here with this full menu. So though it doesn't look like anything has changed with our scene, if we go to interactive render and then we look around, we're going to see that the HDRI is now visible in our scene, and it's creating this really nice overall lighting. Now I'm going to show you how the scene looks with different HDRIs for demonstration purposes. So I'm going to load up a folder that I have a lot of HDRIs already downloaded in, click accept, and now I'm going to see they're all here in this little window. So I can change the HDRI, and what that's going to do is then when I click render, we're actually going to see that HDRI not only in the background, but we're also going to see that HDRI's lighting on my objects. Here's another example. I'm just going to choose this nighttime HDRI, and then not only do we see it in the background, we can also see that it changes the lighting in the scene fundamentally. So we have, some shadows, a little bit of a deeper, more dramatic lighting on my object, and just that overall tone, color that the HDRI is emitting. So I'm sure you're starting to see at this point why HDRIs are such powerful tools when it comes to leveling up the lighting in your scene. We can also adjust the HDRIs using the Easy HDRI plugin over here. For example, if it was a little bit too intense, I can decrease it with sky strength. I can also decrease the sun strength if there is any. There's not in this HDRI. Another thing I can do is actually change the rotation of the HDRI. So if I use these sliders to rotate, you can see that the actual environment is rotating, which means that the shadows are going to be cast in different places and the lighting is going to be in different places as well. So adding in an HDRI is great, but then you want to make sure that you're playing with the values to adjust it to your liking. A few more things to note on HDRIs. One of them is if you don't want the background to be the actual image, you can just do solid under the background display and then you can actually choose the color. So you don't have to have this image in the background, it's completely up to you. If you don't want anything in the background and you want it to render transparent, you're going to come over here to render, scroll down to film, open the film drop down and check transparent. And what that's going to do is make sure that the background renders as nothing. Now, as you'll notice, whether you have a solid background, a transparent background, or the image as background, the HDRI light. Now you'll notice that whether I have a transparent background, a solid background, or use the original image as background, the lighting that the HDRI itself is emitting will not change. So it's completely up to you how you want the background to render if you see it at all. And even though HDRIs are primarily for emitting light, they can also work really well as backdrops sometimes. For example, if I hide the backdrop I created, you can see that there's this really nice backdrop that actually matches the lighting on my avatar perfectly. So they can work really well for backdrops of renders, also for 360 renders, because obviously they are images that show a 360-degree environment. So if I wanted to render this out, I would just click render image, and then just like that, my HDRI is also my environment. Hopefully that was a helpful introduction to the world of HDRIs. HDRIs are so powerful, like I said, and really can be a game-changing feature to add into your work. So I definitely recommend that you follow this tutorial, download Easy HDRI, and play around with bringing some into your scene. And that concludes this video. If you want to jump to the next video, we talk all about leveling up your cameras in Blender, which can be the other part of the equation. So feel free to watch that one. And as always, if you've enjoyed this video, feel free to like and subscribe. And thank you for watching. Good luck.